All righty. Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Advisory Commission. It is January 4th, 2024. Who's calling roll this evening? Jason, would you please?
Christ.
Here.
Lorman is excused. Mulligan.
Here.
Norton.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Zaccaro.
Here.
All right. Can you please confirm we're in compliance with the Iowa Open Meetings Law?
Yes, we are.
Very good. All right, so in front of us, before we jump into this, commissioners, you have the minutes from, let's see, December 6th. I would entertain a motion for approval as submitted or any changes thereof.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 6, 2023 meeting.
I'll second.
Very good. We have a motion and we have a second. Jason?
Christ.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Zaccaro.
Aye.
Mulligan.
I will need to abstain from that. Okay, so those minutes are approved as submitted. So this evening, we have 3 action items and 1 public hearing. Commissioner Norton, I believe you are,
Recuse myself for the action items.
okay, very good. All right, so what we'll do is, if you have an agenda, we'll go through all 3 items in order there. We'll ask you to come up to the podium, state your name, state your address, what it is specifically you're asking for from the commission, and we'll run through it. So let's start with item number 1 at 869 Ramona Street. Is our applicant here? Yes. Come on up.
Hi, Samantha Humke. So just asking for a rezoning of the property at 869 Ramona Street. There were 2 long, narrow properties that were not optimal for use, so we requested that those be combined and then it divided another way, so that the property closest to the house will give a little bit wider yard, and then the property further from the house would be potentially functional, perhaps for another build in the future. And then third, this would provide access, public access to the lot, which is the furthest from the house.
Okay, for clarity, Samantha, do you reside at 869?
I do not.
Would you give us your address, please?
1045 Hiawatha Drive, East Dubuque, Illinois.
Thank you. Okay, before you sit down, commissioners, do we have any questions for Samantha? I do. I'm sorry. Go back to what? These are kind of some awkwardly shaped lots already. Tell me one more time, what are we trying to accomplish here?
So instead of having 2 long, narrow lots, we're actually dividing them up to have 2 lots which are functional and useful, one which would be big enough for a build in the future and have public access, the other one extending the length or width of the yard that's associated with the house.
So the premise would be sometime in the future, there could be a shared access, for example, a driveway to access that back lot. Is
Yes.
that kind of what I'm getting? Okay, sounds good. All right, any additional questions? All right, you can grab a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jason,
Yes.
you would give us our staff report?
Assistant Planner Jason Duba. As the applicant indicated, there are 2 existing lots that together total approximately 1.017 acres, and they're looking to reconfigure those as shown on your screen. The 2 new lots would both be about half an acre, and this is a simple subdivision, but one of the lots, Lot 2, does not have street frontage, so that's why it's coming before the Zoning Advisory Commission, as you would need to waive the street frontage requirement. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. So, Jason, in the event that the Lot 2 were to be sold, somebody wanted to build a house, they'd have to come back before the zoning advisory commission to get some sort of an access easement.
There is an access easement platted.
There is.
It just doesn't have street frontage.
Right, correct, and I can elaborate on that a little bit. So there is an access and utility easement in here. A little bit more background. We did meet with the applicant and discuss kind of a number of different scenarios for subdividing this property. And so that Lot 2 obviously would continue to not have street frontage. It would have access over a portion of Lot 1 as well as utility access there. That access easement or utility easement rather. In the event that Lot 2 were to be developed with a single family residence, which it could be in this zoning district, because of its distance from a street, it would require a special exception, which would have to go to the zoning board of adjustment for review. So that could potentially be part of the future review if they elect to develop the property.
Is there any reason we would have heard from the neighbors, specifically 1290, 80, and 60?
So for the purpose of a subdivision plat, there is not a public notification required, but in the event, again, if they needed that special exception, that would require public notification to all abutting property owners.
Great. Any other questions from the commissioners, comments? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we recommend approval of the plat of survey of Humke Place, subject to waiving the lot frontage requirements for lot number 2.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Jason?
Russell,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you for coming this evening. That will
That will continue to the city council meeting on January 16th. Yes, thanks, Matt.
16th.
And that's a Tuesday, just for the record.
What's on Monday?
It's a Tuesday because of Martin Luther King
Oh,
Jr.
yeah,
Day.
right.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, our second item is a site design waiver at 1870 St. Ambrose Street. Is our applicant here this evening?
Good evening, Pat Norton, Beasing and Associates, 1212 Locust Street. Tonight, what we're asking is, I'm sorry, this is St. Ambrose Street, the parking lot for St. Anthony's. This was same request we had last month, except that last month it was denied, but yet there was no real solid reasons given for it. So we're coming back and asking if this is truly acceptable or not. What we're asking for is the church is planning to remove 2 buildings. There's 2 school buildings along Rosedale that are underneath where this proposed parking lot is in the picture on the screen there. And their intent is to remove the buildings because of ongoing maintenance costs and various other factors. And in doing so, they would like to replace the area with a parking lot. So instead of school, they would like to put a parking lot in. The intent for the parking lot is not necessarily for any new spaces that they want to add. It is really just for serving the daily mass attendees. It provides a closer and a safer parking location because of this new connection that they will make from the parking lot through to the church. Anyway, that's an addition that's being planned at the same time as this project. I'm saying it's safer because it's indoors in the mornings. This time of year, especially, it's rather dark, and they're crossing. Typically, now they park in the parking lot across Rosedale. They've had a few parishioners actually slip and fall in Rosedale on some ice, and so that's one of the driving factors for this. Is more of a safer and convenient location to park. So in doing so, the width of the existing buildings, between the existing building and the existing alley that's right along there, is not quite wide enough to provide for the required 10-foot buffer zone. We believe we can get about 3 foot, but we won't be able to get the full 10 foot that is required. So what we're asking is that if we could have the parking buffer zone reduced from 10 foot down to the 3 foot. So.
Okay. Commissioners, any additional questions? You know, it's the second time we've heard it.
I do have one.
Yeah.
Pat, is the alley a public?
It is.
Right away?
I believe it's a green alley. It's permeable pavers and it's very nice.
Thanks.
I have a question too, but
Yeah.
are they still okay with putting some kind of a fencing or something to keep the headlights from going to the residences on the other side of the alley?
Yeah, they agreed last time. That hasn't changed.
Okay.
Anything else for Pat? Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Gina?
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Mulligan. So as the applicant indicated, this request did come before the commission at the last meeting, and in the event to have it heard by a full commission, as we were short one member at that meeting, they have elected to come back and request this and make this request again. So they are requesting a waiver. Again, the parking lot is a permitted use for the church in association with the church. The real focus of the request today is for that buffer yard along the east side of the parking lot here, outlined in red. It would be a reduction from 7 feet, actually 7 foot requirement, down to approximately a 3 foot buffer yard. So that is the main focus for their request this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Sheena, I do have a question. So just out of curiosity, the structure across the alleyway, it doesn't have 7 feet either, right? I mean, that's 4 feet.
I think those are residential structures, probably a garage. I can pull up a street
It
view
is,
image
yeah,
here
it's a
too.
garage.
But yeah, so those would not necessarily be, so just a single family residential property would not be subject to the same site development standards. But to your point, Chair Mulligan, it is common to see, existing accessory structures that are abutting alleyways throughout different areas of the city. So that's not a completely uncommon circumstance.
So so we were talking about headlights. So we've got,
Oh, the one side of the alley,
yeah, right.
when they park, they'll face, so just some kind of a fencing or buffer so they don't shine headlights into the neighbors.
So are we wanting like because I mean, there's really one house, right? And the rest is
Yeah.
backyards. So are you wanting,
Just gonna pull up a
because
street.
cross street is just chain link, which that's not gonna,
And that's not, yeah,
Solve the
no.
issue.
So it's going to be
chain-
more solid.
Yeah, something that'll,
was that discussed last?
I think we just left it up to that, something that was opaque to stop the headlights from,
Okay. And the
affecting
applicant
the
was okay
neighbors.
with that?
yeah,
Okay.
because we talked about it last time, so.
Okay.
I apologize. May I ask, was there a conversation about a height of that fence at that time? I believe we talked about just a fence, but I don't know that the
Yeah,
commission
I don't think
articulated.
I think.
Okay.
Clear enough, like if it's a pickup or whatever, that it won't go over.
Right. So the commission may wish to consider maybe a minimum height if that is of concern, or maybe just something more general that it obscure headlights from shining into adjacent properties
Yeah.
or something of that nature.
Yeah.
So by the way, if you flip that around 180 degrees, there's like a 6 foot chain link, which looks awful. Actually, that's an 8 foot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, on the school
I
side,
think we leave the height to them and
Yeah.
just say it's opaque and,
preventing headlights, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a design review committee meeting to discuss the parking lot?
A development review, a development review team would be looking at that. We don't necessarily get into the design, like aesthetics, right? We wouldn't necessarily say it has to be a certain type of fence, but we would definitely look at, and actually we've already had kind of a pre-meeting with this applicant to take this through to kind of identify whether there's any major red flags. So that was with our development review team, which includes various city departments. We looked at the access location. I know that they're going to work with engineering to make sure that they have an appropriate curb cut here if this needs to widen. So they're working through that, as well as the parking requirements, angles, making sure the queuing space is appropriate, throat distance, things of that nature. So we are actively talking about that, and they will require a site plan approval for this project.
Very good. Sounds like we might know what we want.
So I'll make a motion to approve the site design, to waive the site design standards for Chapter 13 of the Unified Development Code for the parking lot at 1870 St. Ambrose, and to fencing along
Add fencing
The
along
alley.
the alleyway.
to obscure headlights. How's that?
Okay, very good. Got it? Okay, Jason, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second. Jason?
Zucchero,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, so that motion passes, so we need a
Four affirmative votes.
Yep, four
Yes,
affirmative. Yep,
and
okay.
the site design, yeah, thank you, I should have articulated that before, but the site design waivers do not go on to city council, so this is the final decision this evening.
Very good. Thank you, Pat. Okay, our third item on the list is another site design waiver at 110 East 30th Street and 114 East 30th Street as well. Is our applicant here this evening?
Good evening, Pat Norton, Beasing and Associates, 1212 Locust Street. We are working with Mr. Staver and the Copper Kettle to create some parking for them. They're currently, I don't know if you read the daily updates in the paper about the problem that's across the street, but with the old Dubuque Malt Brewing Company building being in very unstable shape, large portions of Jackson Street, the side streets, have been closed and making it very difficult for patrons to Mr. Staver's restaurant to park. And in doing so, it's spilling back into the neighborhood along White Street and on 30th and 31st, and if there is a 31st. But anyway, it's spilling back into the neighborhoods, and their parking is starting to cause some issues. It just so happens that Mr. Staver also owns the two homes that are located directly behind the Copper Kettle restaurant. And the plan, and I don't think this is a new topic, as I believe there was some rezoning that we did a month or two ago. But anyway, the plan is to demolish the two homes and to construct a parking lot in their place. The issue that we're here tonight to ask for is, the root of our problems are the lot itself is 60 feet wide, and in order to build a parking lot and have the appropriate dimensions for the length of the stalls, the drive aisles, the length of the stalls, you need exactly 60 feet. In doing so, there's no real room left for buffers, green space, that sort of thing. In this case, the whole intent is to provide as many parking stalls as we can to alleviate some of the issues in the neighborhood. So, we're asking if 4 of the requirements could be waived. Specifically, we're asking for the landscape requirement that states a minimum of 20% of the lot be permeable. Then there's a requirement for landscaping of that 20%, which is for every 1,000 feet, you need a shrub, and for every 1,600 square feet, you need a tree. We're asking for that to be waived. We're also asking for the buffer yards to be waived, as we're going to be right up against property lines. One thing I will add at this time, though, is the red line showing on the drawing on the screen is an existing fence. That separates what could be the parking lot from an adjacent home. The adjacent home is actually also owned by Mr. Staver, and it is a rental property. But either way, the intent is for that fence to remain, or something similar to be reconstructed, what have you, in case it gets damaged. But the intent is for that to stay. So anyway, and then that actually leads into the screening requirements. The fences have to be 50% opaque, and this is actually a wooden picket fence. That's panel fence. It's probably like 6 feet high or so. Basically, it's solid. Or no, I'm sorry.
This one.
It's a wire fence? I'm sorry, I had something else totally in my mind. I'm sorry. The intent is for that wall, I know, to stay. And then, something along there to be, obviously, for it to be waived, the requirement for the screening. I will say that the adjacent neighbor, the owner isn't going to object, as it's the same owner for all of the lots we're talking about here, so that's one positive we have in front of us tonight. But in any event, those are our 4 requests for the evening.
Okay. Any questions for Pat? Okay, so just so we can say we talked about it, that fence that is the boundary?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had another fence stuck in my brain, which is wrong. Yeah, that's one I was thinking of.
Do you think, Pat, I know Chris owns that house. And there's gonna be cars 2 feet away from the, okay.
Correct.
Okay. That house is on the boundary, isn't it?
Unfortunately, there's.
That house didn't go through our zoning advisory commission.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good.
Not recently, not in the past, or ever.
All right, anything for Pat? Okay, thanks, Pat.
Yep.
Sheena, are you the?
I am, thank you, yes. Let me just pull up my diagram here. So as the applicant articulated, they are seeking this evening a number of waivers from the Unified Development Code site design standards, specifically in order to construct the parking lot they are proposing as presented here in the drawing. I will start by saying that, similar to the last project, we have taken this as a conceptual plan to the development review team for their review. They are looking at potentially a couple additional waivers from the engineering department with respect to throat distance on the entry here. And then also the distance between this curb cut and the intersection here. So the applicant is actively working on seeking those administrative waivers as well. For the purpose of the commission's review this evening, the requests that they're making are related specifically to the permeable area. So again, we're looking at just the 2 lots here when evaluating this. The Copper Kettle site is shown on this, as far as the access and location, it will share the access over that property boundary. But we are looking specifically at these 2 lots with respect to these requests. So just want to make sure we articulate that. And so the permeable area requirement, that code requires 20%. They are looking at approximately 6.3% for the proposed project. The second request is for the site landscaping. So the code would generally require a minimum of 4 trees and 6 shrubs for this project site. The applicant is requesting a waiver from the tree requirements and the shrub requirements, although they had indicated to staff that there may be consideration in planting some shrubs, so perhaps that may be something the commission may wish to further discuss with the applicant this evening. The third request is specific to the landscaping buffers, and so in this image here, the applicant would be required to provide a 10-foot landscape buffer both along the north property line and the west property line along White Street and East 30th Street, and then a 7-foot landscape buffer along the southern property line adjacent to residential there. And so they are seeking a waiver from those requirements in their entirety. And then the fourth request this evening, as Pat mentioned, was the screening requirement. So the code does require, and I put a red line in here to indicate the approximate location, generally between a commercial use, which this property has been rezoned to commercial district, and abutting residential uses. They would require a 6-foot high fence that would have to be a minimum of 50% opaque. And so they are seeking a waiver from that requirement as well. As mentioned already this evening, the applicant has indicated that they do plan to maintain that 4-foot fence that exists between the two properties currently. And I will just add that for a site design waiver, a minimum of 4 affirmative votes are required to approve a site design waiver. And with that, staff is happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Sounds good. Any questions for Sheena?
Maybe a silly question. So on the site plan, what's that white kind of area?
Like to the right here? Oh,
Yep.
that would be essentially a little island area, like potentially a landscapable area, but
would
in order
be-
to create the turning radius. And actually, just on that point too, Commissioner Zuccaro, the way the applicant is showing this, they are indicating that this would be a one-way parking, or parking lot rather. So they would, patrons would enter off of White Street and then exit off to 30th Street. So that little angled area, just triangular-ish area, provides the turning radius to be able to exit the lot there. So
Was there a total of 15 lots?
1, 2, 3,
And I'm assuming would the majority be for workers?
16. I would have to defer to the
Yeah, and that's
the property owner for that.
priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other? Okay. So, just my 2 cents, I think it would make sense to suggest at least the 3 areas that could be landscaped are landscaped in some way, shape, or form. I don't know that I care to say you need this many shrubs,
Right.
just landscape it.
Just something.
I feel like that fence is a problem, but he owns the house too, and so at some point, if he wanted to sell the house, that would be something he'd have to deal with. I mean, the bumper of those cars are a foot away from the house, but obviously he's doing this due to what's happening catty corner, and that's affecting his business, so I certainly don't want to get in the way of that. So, having said that, well, are we in alignment on just landscaping the areas that can be landscaped? And we won't say what it needs to be, just our desire is that it's landscaped?
That works.
I would suggest that we put at least a minimum number of shrubs in the motion,
Okay.
like 6.
I think it'd be a great motion for you to make.
Let me gather my thoughts.
Gather your thoughts. Take your time.
How much space do they have?
What's that?
I said, how much space do they have? I mean, to make.
2, 2, and 2?
Yeah. So I make a motion, we approve the waiving of the site development standards in the UDC pertaining to the request, with the exception of requiring at least 6 shrubs be planted.
Very good. We have a motion. Do we have a second? I will second that. All right, Jason, we have a motion and a second. Would you please?
Christ,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Zuccaro,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. That doesn't need to go to,
Correct. That does
Right,
not go down
okay.
to city council. This is the final decision.
okay. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Pat. You back?
I'm back.
All right. Our next item is a public hearing, a text amendment to the UDC to add mini warehouses below first floor of of some stuff. Is our applicant here this evening? Tom, come on up.
Hello, Tom Round, 9190 Royalwood Drive, Piasta.
You want to walk us through what you're thinking?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is a property at 962 and 980 Main Street. You can go to the next one. So this is the Main Street side of things. We got a couple rented spaces, a couple vacant spaces. And what we're looking at is the first floor of this building, which is also the basement, but it's a walkout basement. So it's kind of a unique property the way 10th Street goes down there. So next shot, you can see there's the alleyway. There's a kind of a, I don't know if I'd call it a storefront, but I think it used to be a bank there. So there's a office area there kind of on the side, and there's on the sidewalk there where you can go in as well. So we're looking at that space on the corner as a basically pack, ship, and store business right now, with a lot of people working remote, Amazon pickups to add to kind of safety if people are getting big packages delivered, whether it's to apartment buildings or outside their house. They're vulnerable to them getting stolen stuff. So what you see in a lot of cities now are Amazon drop zones where they've got secure places to have these delivered, go and pick them up. It's basically like a large mailbox, basically. And then this is the backside that, like I said, opens up the bottom floor to the alleyway. That underneath there, I don't have the exact square footage, but it's roughly like 7,000 square feet that has not been used in the last 30 years. It's completely vacant. The guy we purchased the building from about 5 years ago, they just stored Christmas decorations down there. So we were trying to figure out a great use for this. And, through seeing what's happening in some other cities and a need kind of in our city, we thought this would make a great use for climate-controlled storage. So the thing we're proposing here is not there. When I looked at the zoning, it's like, no, this is not what we're looking for. So it's not outdoor storage. If you go to the next slide, you can see some of the storage things that are being built or utilized in cities right now, kind of across the U.S., meeting some of this demand of the changing demographics and the way people are working, where they're repurposing. It might be an office building or other commercial buildings. You can see in the next one, or they're even, right in downtown Chicago and other cities where you see it basically taking up prime retail space because they know the need for this and in proximity to where a lot of people are living. So next one. So the community need I kind of looked at for this was the increased development of apartment units, especially in the downtown area. The economy houses such as switch homes without basements, so people, where are they going to put their stuff? Smaller units needing more space to store. So we see the workforce housing, you don't have a lot of extra storage in that. Virtual workforce, so people are downsizing, not as large of homes. E-commerce, inventory storage, so people are doing the gig economy, doing Amazon stores, selling stuff on eBay, setting up Shopify stores, whatever it is. And a lot of people are doing these businesses where they need extra space to kind of operate and do this. So that's where the pack and ship postal part of it kind of goes hand in hand with the additional storage itself. And then we've got, need for college students between school years, traveling nurses, and a few other needs for it. So a brief look at what this would look on the interior. So I like to think of these as, it says storage units. I like to think of them as lockers. And so they're smaller, ranging from, like a 3 foot by 3 foot, 5 foot by 5 foot space, and, sometimes stacked, 2 high or 3 high. You can see the next one there. So various things and a way to utilize that kind of underground basement space that currently is vacant. And then the next one will show kind of what we have in mind for the pack and ship. So people will be able to, and this is, I believe the pack and ship part of it is already part of the zoning there. So that's not an issue with it. This would just be in addition to filling up that space.
Very cool. Okay, any questions for Mr. Rowan? Tom, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Grab a seat. Okay, so this is a public hearing, right?
Yep.
All right, this is a public hearing. So having said that, I'll open it up. Anybody has something to say is welcome to come up and say what it is they want to say. I'll ask your name and your address. So if so, floor is open. Very good. Seeing none, floor is closed. Okay, with that, I'll move on to staff report.
Thank you, Chair Mulligan. So as the applicant articulated, the majority of the proposed use that they're proposing here, which we would categorize as mini warehousing in the UDC, is not currently a permitted use in the C4 or the C5 districts in the downtown area. And so, as Mr. Rowan indicated, he, in an effort to be able to kind of utilize this lower level space in his property, is seeking this text amendment. And in doing that, we took a look at both the C4 and the C5 districts, as they generally allow very similar uses, tend to be in the downtown area where there's a little bit more density, and thought perhaps this would make a good sense to allow in the downtown area to serve the growing downtown residential population as well as businesses. And so the proposal would allow this mini warehousing or mini storage in the C4 and the C5 districts, specifically below the first floor only. And so as mentioned already, with COVID and kind of changing work and you know, habits, I think we've identified there's more of a need for people to have this type of an option, but also taking into consideration that we would not want it to necessarily detract from, you know, prime real estate potentially on a street, you know, that would be maybe more prime for other types of uses in the downtown area. We felt that this would be a good compromise to allow this type of a use, to provide this type of a service in the downtown area, but to limit that specifically to that lower first floor, below the first floor only. So that is the proposal. Again, as proposed, it would amend both the C4 and the C5. So the C4 downtown commercial district and the C5 business district, and it would allow mini warehouse below the first floor area in both districts as a permitted use. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
So I think it's really cool. I'm glad we're doing this. I guess my only thought is, so some of our downtown, I mean, somebody could, in theory, suggest that is the first floor on the alley side, for what it's worth, if they were opposed to it. The second floor is up here, so I could just see that. And the other thing I would say is what Tom had shown in Chicago, you know, that was obviously first floor. Rarely would it pencil unless there was nothing, right? And so it would be taking up prime real estate, but it would be economically feasible. So, you know, maybe at some point, I guess what I'm saying is at some point I could see the opportunity to actually drop on the first floor only. I understand why we're putting it in there right now, but that could be a conversation for later when somebody has a great idea to put it above a basement.
Or even on the second story, put it in the second, third floor.
Yeah.
You know, just not on the main.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But, I mean,
that's-
for this purpose, I think it's great. Accomplishes what he needs, so. Any other thoughts from the commission? If not,
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to throw in here is when we get to rewriting the UDC, we may want to define indoor climate-controlled storage as a separate use from mini warehouse, because it truly is a totally different use. Yeah, it's about the same thing, but they serve two totally different functions in life. So anyway, just a suggestion. And again, with Matt, I wouldn't have an issue if this were even on the second, third floor of a building.
So just to address that specifically, we've actually received a lot of inquiries about taking our downtown buildings with the office spaces being removed and being converted to mini warehousing units. And that's something that's not encouraged, especially from a planning principle standpoint. We'd rather see those spaces be adapted or used into apartments or office space and keep more of that ground level storefront space more active and vibrant, since the reason why we had the request before. I could see maybe in the future mounted on the first floor in certain cases. We do have it outside our current immediate downtown and some other areas that we had that are zone C3. But that's the reason why it's very site specific to below the first floor only. Because believe it or not, we've had an enormous amount of requests because they can't lease their office space. So what's the next easiest thing to do is just rent it out as warehouse space. And we'd rather see that as more of a vibrant downtown. So that's the main discussion, why it's in a C4 and C5, which is pretty much our town clock plaza area and our main street and area. And so we want to encourage housing and everything in that area. So.
Wally?
But we still need that ground storage to service those people that are living in downtown, right? So.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to amend the Unified Development Code to add mini warehousing below the first floor only as a permitted use in the C4 and C5 commercial business districts.
Very good. We have a
Second.
Motion. We have a second. Jason?
Christ,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Russell,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes, and we'll go before City Council on January 16th. Thanks, Tom. Okay, let's see. That's it, right, gang? That did it. All right, any items from the public this evening? Very good. Any items from our commission? Great. Any items from staff?
I do not.
Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.